Hey everybody, what's going on? Alan here. Welcome to the channel, and in this video we're going to be working on my mom's 2012 Chrysler 300. And as of this moment, I don't know what the title is going to say because I don't know what the problem is. All I know is that we're losing coolant and we're losing it quick, and there's a big puddle in the valley of the engine. So let's just get to looking. Let me show you. Now this is the 2012 3.6 liter dual overhead cam. And a common problem with these is this oil cooler setup going out, and I'm hoping that it's just the gaskets in there that need to be replaced, but really I have no idea. If we look deep down in here, you can see a puddle. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's definitely a lot of some sort of liquid, I'm assuming is coolant, building up down there because we're losing it very quickly. The only thing I can think of is to take off the intake manifold so I can get a better view and try to locate the source of the leak. So the first thing to go is the air intake hose. If we're removing the intake because it's attached to the throttle body, we're going to remove that clamp, this clamp, and there is an air temperature sensor right here as well. Thought the ice cream man was blaring that song for a second. It's a guy on a motorcycle. Okay. There we go. Okay, so it looks like you're going to want to get far underneath it and pull up. I ripped it a little bit. I'll have to replace that. Let's get the rest of the harness off. There's a connector here for the throttle body. And then slide that clip off. Who invents clips like this? Set that aside. Let's see, give this a twist that way. There we go. PCV hose from the valve cover here. I don't know why they couldn't just make the hose shorter. They had to make an S-shaped boot. Looks like there's a bracket here, a metal bracket with 210 mils. We'll have to remove that and then loosen. Is that loose already? That bolt for the bottom of this bracket is already loose. It's like a double-ended stud. That's interesting. First, there's this vent tube here for the transmission. Looks like rolling these clips away seems to be the best way to do it. I've never taken one of these apart before, so it's going to be a learning experience. And we got some more support brackets here and there, and then we'll have to loosen the bolts on the bottom of those brackets. I think that's everything except for the support brackets. I'm gonna get this breather tube the rest of the way out of the way. There we go. The other tubes I just kind of tucked back there and down there, and the 10 mil here. And here. And then the double-ended stud that's already loose is right there. Oh yeah, the harness is supposed to be attached over the stud, and it's not. Someone's been in here before. When we bought this from a dealer, and there was evidence of a long history of work done to it by a dealership. There's a long list of paperwork. So and there's still a part of the harness attached to it. So we'll just leave that chilling right there. And now over here on the driver's side, we've got more issues. This bracket is not even attached. It's tightened at the bottom on the head, on the cylinder head, but the top is nowhere near the stud here that it needs to be tightened to. But here's one 10 mil here we can remove. Now the bottom of that bracket is right here. I'm gonna pull this other PVC hose out of the way. It is a 13. Okay, that's just enough to pull that away. All right, so now it comes to the upper intake bolts. We're gonna have to remove it in two sections. There's these ones running closest to each other, and we'll move it in like the opposite from the outside into the center. And that is it. All right, no extra stuff that I didn't forget. So I'm going to undo all these injectors, connectors. I don't think this is supposed to come all the way out like that. But you're gonna have to do the coils also to get the harness peeled all the way back and out of the way. A retainer clip here in the center. Gently, don't want to break it like the other one is already. This one's already busted off. More evidence that someone's in here. This one is mangled. Dang. Okay. Well, that red connector came up nice and easy. So did that one. And then we got, can we wedge it under the fuel line? Yep, okay, good. All right, now if I'd have realized I was gonna be removing fuel rails, you'd want to start the car and then pull a fuse for the fuel pump, or go unplug the fuel pump while it's running to let it get rid of the pressure. Sometimes if you get rid of the fuel, you unplug the fuse or unplug the fuel pump and then try to start it, the car won't even start to begin with because it's unplugged. And then you still have pressure. And you think there's no pressure because it didn't start, but no. So pull it while it's running, and then you know for sure when the engine dies, there's as little pressure as possible. What you're gonna wanna do is push this forward to relieve the pressure, the tension off of the green clip. Then you can squeeze the green clip in like that and pull it, the whole line off. And there's probably gonna be a ton of fuel coming out of here. Okay. Disaster averted. Harness is out of the way, fuel line is off. So these bolts, like the uppers, were 8mm heads, or you could use a Torx. I'm not sure what size they are, probably a 20. Oh, okay. And that is it. Unless you don't get it off all the way. Careful with the tilting because the rails are still full of gas. Alright, now we can see in here we have coolant front to back. And there is a big coolant hose feeding into it. I still can't tell if it's a hose leak or if there's a gasket underneath this cooler that has given way, but we're gonna replace it all anyways. Put some fresh sensors here, because she did have a code at one point saying that her oil temp or oil pressure was non-existent, or sensor. I don't remember the code exactly anymore, but it kind of went away. That is in there. Alright, I'm pretty confident now that I've soaked up enough of it to drop it down below a level that it shouldn't mix into the oil when I pull this thing out. Alright, so the drain on the radiator is in the same spot as the older ones, but it doesn't like to work any better than the older ones either. I don't get it. So you've got to drain the coolant, because this hose goes over and feeds into that, and if I were to take it off, I'd just pour everything that was in here and in the heater circuit right back into the center of the motor again. So I think it's going to be easiest to take this hose off after I get it up out of the valley. There we go. And you're going to need an E8 external Torx. So I think it's just stuck in there by grommet. Gotta work it out. Alright, so here's what we're looking at. A great big mess. So this one is your oil, and that big one there is an oil. These two with the grommets still left in them are your coolant passages. It's going to come in the hose and through the cooler and down through these coolant passages, and that is where the leak was. Maybe not necessarily on those grommets, but if we look in this plastic piece here, those are the two holes here with the grommets. Those are the coolant passages. And we look in, where was it? Right here. All that pink staining. It's leaking from, you know, the layers, the layered part, the assembled piece here that goes into it. So we will be replacing this whole thing. Alright, new parts are finally in. We can finish up this Chrysler now. We've got new bolts, new gaskets for the intake, and of course the part itself with 2 fresh sensors. So this...
Hey man, I love your truck, bro. Chevy, fucking love it.
Thank you. So this is going to force your 2010 to 2013 up to the newer style 2014 and plus oil filter. All right, with the valley all nice and cleaned out and the surfaces, the mounting surfaces all cleaned off of old gasket remnants, we can set this new part in place. And I've already got the bolts dropped in. Oh, and then there's, yeah, you gotta, okay, there is an O-ring on that piece there. I need to lube it up. Almost forgot a step. Alright, there is already some grease on it, and it feels really gooey or slippery. So now we should be able to work that in first. There we go. There we go. There, all the bolt holes are lined up in there. So we just gotta screw these in and torque them down. Okay, so according to the Chilton manual, the oil cooler bolts get 35 inch-pounds and the screws get 106 inch-pounds. These Allen head screws are what I'm talking about, but those should be fine. That came pre-installed. So it's just these outer bolts with the external torques. Those get 35. And we'll start, I guess, with these two here. Those are closest to the center. I'm gonna go around and get them all pretty much to the metal. Good karate chop for good luck. Now it's a good time to hook up this hose. There we go. Now we want to plug in our sensors. Coolant temperature at the bottom here. And this is going to go this way. And that safety clip moved down into place right after it snapped in. That's in. Alright, so I don't think I mentioned it, but these new seals on the oil cooler as well, and the intake manifold, are a better quality Viton seal. Now we can go set this on. I'm going to take this clip off now, while it's easy, because this needs to get inserted back into the fuel line and then clipped on together as one. And I'm just noticing that some of these clips for the harness over there, someone was in here before and they snipped these off with dikes. You can see how it's squished together. Unfriggin' believable. Because what, they didn't have a pry tool to get underneath that? I mean, I'm a garage mechanic and I figured it out. What the heck, guys? And I have a Carfax on this vehicle. We bought it from the dealership. And there was no talk of any upper end work being done to this. Nothing in there about having to do any kind of motor work. And now we can replace all of these upper intake manifold seals. It's always a good idea to refresh these regardless of what you're doing. These ones still look like they stuck, you know, above the plane pretty well. But, you know, since they're coming with new ones, might as well use them. I pre-torqued all these first to that 35 because that's what it was set at from when I installed the oil cooler. So I just figured that's a good place to start. But this, I don't know if I mentioned it, but this is 106 inches. Now before I put this upper intake manifold on, I pulled off this other support bracket that was down here near the back. Because if you remember, it was bent outward. You can see why now. Someone decided they were just gonna yank on it and pry it away from the intake manifold rather than get in there and loosen it. So I'll stick this in the vise and try to make it as straight as possible. Slide that in there. I mean, I know why, because this heater hose is kind of a pain in the butt to work around. But dang, guys. I'm gonna leave it a little loose so we can maneuver it. But these are definitely got to be done first.
I'll go up and purchase this.
Okay.
It'll be bulk.
Okay. I gotta put this green clip in, slide that on. O-ring still feels nice and tight, that's good. Slide this insulator on there, that'll keep the heat from this valve cover getting up into your intake. There are 2 dowel pins that make it real easy for alignment. There we are. These are going to get torqued to 89, which is barely more than hand tight. In fact, I'll just use this. See that? Barely more than hand tight. Now we can slide this bracket into place. Oh, there we go. And this one's already in place. And we can tighten up the bottom bolts and the top nuts. And we can slide this heater hose on. Put this nut on. Easier said than done. These are some tight spaces, not gonna lie. Now we can slide these wiring harness clips back into place, wherever they were supposed to go. Now these little nuts for the top of the brackets. Now we got this bracket on the throttle body side to connect. And that's gonna slide on just like that, just like that. And this double-ended stud, I'm gonna go down here. Remember, this stud wasn't even tightened; it was loose. And then the bracket on the other side was bent out and it didn't have a nut, so we're actually short a nut because I just took one from this side, I just realized, and used it over there. Okay, now we're short 2 nuts. Alright, I found one, so we'll put that there, and we'll tighten these 2 up first before tightening this bottom one. Now we can bring this harness around. We know that goes there, and that clips on there. That means this one goes here and clips onto the plastic down there. And for the PCV tube, we can slide this on. Alright, this one I had hidden back there is gonna go right up top. And this guy is gonna go right there. That'll clip on here. The PCB hose on this side can get hooked up since I'm not working over here anymore. And this is a transmission vent tube. So you can see the scratch marks there where that was. This will clip on to this hose. We'll scratch back onto that one. This will get inserted right back here. All right, next comes the hose. Intake hose. We'll slide that over. And then this down here actually pops into place. Once it's on the throttle body. There we go. So that keeps it aligned. Then you give it a little twist until this touches that. So you know it's in place. Then we can hook up this hose. Boom. It all fits together. Alright, so before hooking this up, I actually want to clean this airflow sensor. So I'm going to give it a quarter turn, just like Lefty Loosey, and wiggle it out. Now we can see the back side of it's white. The front side where all the dirt hits, not so white. That's what we need to clean. And you want to use something like mass airflow sensor cleaner that will not leave a residue, a staining residue on this. And that is pretty much it. Just got to fill it up with coolant and some oil, or maybe do an oil change. Like in my case, it's due for one. So I'm going to do that before starting it up. And as far as the coolant goes, you're just going to loosen this screw right there and fill it up until it comes out of that screw. Then you'll tighten it up. Grab one of these funnels here, set it up like so, and let the system do its job there. These motors, I know at least the Hemis are tricky. I don't know about the V6s, but stay tuned to my other social media outlets like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, and I'll post little videos about how to do all this. And also get on there anyways to check out this extra little surprise I've got in addition to that oil cooler. So please like, please subscribe, hit the bell, go find those other social media outlets, and follow me on there too. And until next time, peace.